I see a blank screen. Oh, hi, John.
You're there.
Okay,
We can hear you and see you.
okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, do we have everybody?
I'm here.
Yes, I believe everybody from the planning board is here. Ashley is here. Joe Zongo is here.
Okay, and everybody from the applicant needs to be here.
Jamie Machado's here, the architect.
Okay, in that event, good evening, everybody. It's the Tuxedo Park Planning Board. All the planning members are present, along with our council and engineer and John Ledwith and Desiree and our lawyer, keeping track of our discussions today. And we are here to review the PERNA application. We have comments from Weston and Sampson. And John, I don't know how you would like to approach it, but I thought what we could do is just take the comment letter and just work down them one by one. Some of them are less important than others, but just walk through that as a frame. Or Mr. Mikado, would you like to sort of update us on where you are, and we can go from there?
Yeah, I could get started, so this way we're not waiting. I received the letter from Joe. I forgot his last name.
Zongo.
Zongo of Weston and Sampson, and I went through it. I submitted this morning the answer in red of my proposal, and I guess, or you know, the design of where we were and where we are at this moment. We have Troy, who is now part of the team, and the reason we have him is that at one point you guys requested to have a calculation of the water runoff based on a 100-year flood and maybe a 150-year flood. He submitted a report on that, a stormwater management report that was issued yesterday, and you should have a copy of that. If we can all look at the site plan, I could just kind of summarize what we have done and where the changes are. I don't know, are we able to share the screen as far as
Yes, I can enable you to share the screen and you can walk us through the plan if you'd like.
Actually, could you bring it up? Because I'm on my iPad. I have it on my screen, but it's not connected to the Zoom.
So you want me to bring up the site plan that was issued today?
Yes,
Um,
just want to make sure we have the correct one. And it's the it should be the CO01 PDF. So it starts off with 01 CO-01.
John, did you go to the top one? Because I don't know that it's the next one down, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. No, I couldn't tell if this was the right one earlier because you didn't update the revision date in the right corner, but
I apologize for that.
that's okay. Where do you want to go?
The second one down, which is 01 CO-01.
That's this document.
Yes.
Can everybody see that? And I can zoom in wherever you'd like.
It hasn't loaded yet.
Oh, sorry. Let me know when you can see it.
John, do you have multiple monitors?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It
'Cause
does say I'm
It looks
sharing.
like you need to click on it. I mean, you've got it identified, but it doesn't look like it's loading.
It says I'm sharing the screen, but it's not.
I know
coming.
you are sharing the screen, but I'm not sure you've clicked on the document to get it to load.
Um, Hold on a second. One moment.
Jamie can sing a song while we wait.
Because what we're looking at is the arrow is just kind of sitting there, and it doesn't look like it's been clicked on to pull the file up.
Well, it's a 12 meg file and I opened
so
it on
it's-
my end. I opened it on my end. It says I'm sharing the screen. Let's just give it a moment to see if it loads.
Okay.
Before the meeting, I unzipped the email.
I will freely confess, I'm not terribly computer savvy, but that just looks like it hasn't been clicked on and isn't loading from the screenshot. that we're
I'm
looking at.
actually going to see if I could load it up on my end. I'm going to my mail.
Yeah, and John, sometimes you have to stop and start over again. It's just the magic of, right? The first question from IT, have you turned it off and turned it back on again?
Jamie, do you want to try to load it or no?
Yeah, I'm going to try to load it. If I do, I'm going to tell you in a second. Yes.
You know,
okay, so-
I have it on my screen, John. I just downloaded the email that you sent from this afternoon.
Well, it might be better if Jamie loads it. This way he can point to what he's referencing, but it's.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I got the email, but I have to see, how do I download? Oh, wait, there we go. Finally popped up. I'm going to see if I could share. Just give me a second. Screen broadcast. What do I hit? The screen broadcast or start broadcast? I think I did it. Okay.
You're sharing the screen.
Okay, hold on. Oh, here we go. All right, do you see the sheet?
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I'm trying to zoom in. And, oop, uh-oh. Trying to zoom up. Ah, there you go. All right, so do you guys see the zoomed up of the house itself?
Yes. Or
Yep.
a little
Okay,
more
start-
is,
Getting there. There we go.
okay.
All right, so starting here, then I'll just kind of speak, go through the whole site and what we've done. As you remember, I had to choose, 3 retaining areas, and then we got the engineer involved, and he revised certain things as exactly what you're seeing right now. And starting from the top, he indicated where the rain gutters would drain to daylight. And if you remember the first time, I had a cheese doodle retaining area, which was connected by a pipe, which was also a trench drain / curtain drain, which went to secondary retainage area, which was underneath the driveway. And then from there, any overflow would go down to the lower area where the driveway would bend. So looking at that, he revised and says, well, we'll create the trench drain and wrap it around the northern part of the house. And if you notice the little circles on the corners of the building, that's where the assumed location would be for the downspouts of the gutters. And underground, they would run to daylight to the trench. So that would collect everything on the upper part. On the west side of the northernmost portion of the grass area, which is actually west of the building location, we decided not to do anything. That would naturally just go back into the ground. So just sticking to the north, it would travel down to the easternmost part, which is closer to where the garage is. From there, it would take a 90-degree turn and go into what we're calling now retainage area 1. As you notice, there's some information on the elevation for the RIN, the intake and the invert for that area. On the engineer's report, it describes a little bit more in detail what that pertains to, how it's designed, the volume of it, and we could get into that once the engineer hops on. From there, the retainage area 1, any additional overflow would then go down to retainage area 2. So before we had 3 retainage areas, and now we only have 2. So the second one is at the bend of the driveway. So here, any overflow would then go into the bottom area. And of course, this will also collect the local area around it, if anything. The contours have been updated. We updated sheet A003 for the cut and fill calculation to reflect what's shown here. We addressed the questions that your engineer had for having consistency throughout our pages. We could go through that sheet by sheet. But some of the items was to make sure that, what's being called out on the site plan is also being called out on sheet A001, which is the original design by the engineer. And I updated that to reflect what is shown here as far as section. I think A001 originally showed a 2-story building and a basement. We don't have that in this case, so that all that has been updated to reflect and be consistent throughout all our drawings. So
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt for a second. So the house is just a 1-story house now, is the intent?
yes, it's always been a 1-story house. I just didn't coordinate that with the other drawing by the engineer. I guess I was concentrating more on the site design and not reflecting the information throughout all our sheets to make sure that it's consistent.
Wait a minute.
Other-
I would time out a second, if I may. Because in our last meeting, there was definitely discussion of stairs up to a second floor that was mostly going to be used as a residence for Mr. Perner's son.
Right.
So that,
Oh.
how did, somewhere stairs and only one story don't add up together.
Right.
And it doesn't
Oh.
matter, but let's make sure let's make sure that whatever we're seeing is representing what you're planning.
That's my fault, actually. I forgot about the upstairs. I thought it was like a 1.5 story, 1 story building with a roof. I forgot about the upstairs area. So that's my fault. I'll change that back to 2 stories and reflect that.
Okay, just,
So one of the past comments was to change the 11% grade of the driveway into 10%, which is reflected here. Other comments was to what do we do with the beginning of the driveway? As you can see, we have a landscape swale. Comments about identifying the trench drain and where it goes. It's just connected directly to that landscape drainage swale. And also a request of the detail and information, which is shown in the bubble here. And also to summarize, we added
Could you-
information.
Could you pop back to that detail of the swale, please, for a second, and just pause there for a moment? So
So it will be this area right here, which is highlighted in a dark dash area, which is kind of a elliptical.
and is it intended to be just a terrain impression that's going to hold water at high density periods, or is there any kind of holding tank that's involved in it, or?
There is no holding tank. Most likely, all these retainage areas will not be in use. This is only for like an extreme condition if it rains for 2 weeks straight, which is unlikely. And if anything, the whole site basically has a decent drainage capacity, so it never overflows. It kind of soaks into the ground. I understand that there's a lot of bedrock here, but there's a difference between having bedrock and cracked bedrock, where water could kind of seep through the cracks of underneath the bedrock situation. So according to the PERC test, this site does not hold water whatsoever. So the retainage area is, and this is better described in the report from the engineer, so we could talk about that if the engineer is on board at the moment. But
And can you just address, because there's a lot of steep slope behind the hill that's coming down into the house. And, so I'm not sure I entirely understood if you were trying to route that water around the house back out to the front to these drainage areas.
okay.
Having, I live at the bottom of a hill, so I'm very familiar with how much water can come down those hills.
If you look at the surrounding area of the building itself is at a certain elevation. From that, the surrounding grass area, which is being proposed, will slope away the house in all directions. So anything coming from above the hill would be caught and directed toward the trench drains, which is the heavier dash area that you see here. This would collect everything and prevent water from even reaching the house. From there, it would go down toward the driveway And then from, where you can see the trench drain indication with it turns 90 degrees, that will go into retainage area 1. On the west side of retainage area 1, all the water would naturally just go toward the area because that's the lowest point. But you can see the elevation of what we're trying to do. So the water would naturally go away from the building toward area 1, which also collects water from a higher location, which if you look at this area right here, the water would not go past the dash line from the upper portion of the site. And the arrows that you see below the dash line is water going toward the trench drain as well and away from the main building. So this building is never going to be seeing any type of water or ponding at all.
And the depth of that, it's trench, you're saying trench, not French. The depth of the
Yeah.
trench drain is
Yes.
what?
I have a detail on A004. Let's see if I could find that. You could bear with me a second. Maybe I don't have the detail that, but I did.
It's typically 2 to 2.5 feet deep, filled with clean stone and probably an 8-inch perforated pipe.
Right.
And it would be, we'd probably make it pretty substantial, maybe a 1.5 feet wide, with the stone carrying all the way up to the surface, so it can capture surface runoff from the upgrade areas.
Yeah, I
Who
would
just
just,
said
I mean, we're now, if you saw the cars floating away on Route 4, we're getting really significant rainstorms that create a lot of short-term density. I mean, hopefully we won't have long-term storms of the same. So I'd just point that out. I mean, Jay could comment on it further, but as I say, I live at the bottom of a hill and I've got a variety of things breaking the flow coming down.
Well, I mean, I think that, there were a number of comments raised both at the last meeting and in Joe's initial response to the submitted plans. And it looks like a lot of those have been addressed. Now, I know that I got these updated drawings, after lunch today, and I got the engineer's report after lunch today. And I've looked at it and said, yes, it's updated drawings in an engineer's report, but I know that I haven't had a chance to review it. I don't know if Joe has. I think that, we need to make sure that those comments have properly been addressed, and we can see if the engineer's report properly supports it, and then we'll know. And that's, I don't think there's a,
yes.
immediately, this doesn't have to be based on feelings. We have numbers.
I know, I'm tossing experience into the mix and but
Absolutely.
obviously, the number 8 on the list is we need the stormwater pre and post construction runoff analysis that'll say, okay, this is how this system is intended to work.
Right. And I believe that's in the report that we received today.
Right. I mean, this meeting today, we didn't have all the information as Jay is pointing out. So we're having a preliminary meeting and orientation. We need that, and our engineer needs the time to do the full analysis for our next meeting.
Yep. No, that's correct. As I said, I'm just summarizing the changes. I realized that we just uploaded this information. We had some timing issues trying to get people involved to to do the calculations. And being the summer, a lot of people are not available, and so we got lucky. So, you know, again, as far as the site is concerned, there was a question about the geothermal, that you guys wish to have that on the plan and its location. The gentleman that's involved with that, I mean, he explained to me how this works, and I don't know if Jack Parno wants to talk about it, but generally, what I want to show is the location of it, and this is not defined as of yet. This is just a suggestion of the location, but the common limitations that we have is the system has to be about 15 feet away from the building. And there is 7 wells. Each circle that you see, the one, for example, to the left, which is slightly larger, has 4 equidistance wells within that circle. It's kind of hard to tell, but they're indicated as dots. You could barely see them. You know, you can see the 4 dots there. And then the circle on the right is slightly smaller with 3 wells. The distance between these 2 circles is about 15 feet. And so these are the parameters, whether that's going to be the true location, or if it's going to move to the west or more to the east of the building. We don't know. It all depends on what we find at the site. But this is just a suggestion of where this might go. Other items, if you guys would ask the question, I mean, there's a couple of things that we did throughout. Again, I apologize for indicating the 1-story. It did say 2-story. I don't know what came into my mind. I think it was just late and I wasn't thinking. But there is a 2nd-story area for this building, but most of this is a story or 2-story space. So it says, you know, for example, the living room is a 2-story space. So that's where I thought I'm mistaking it as a 1-story when it's truly a 2-story. But most of the spaces are, you know, a 2-story single space.
Let me just point out the wing where the bedrooms are. That's a 2-story structure, and the entranceway is 2 stories. And then where the living room, dining room, and kitchen area, that's 1 story, and the garage is 1 story. So the only structures that are 2 stories are the entryway and 2nd floor where the bedrooms are. Floors, bedrooms 3 and 4.
Conveniently, the purview of this board more has to do with footprint. I mean, so long as you're not under the maximum, as long as you're under the maximum height limit, so we don't have to send you to variances, but just.
I think we're under 70 feet. That would be quite a ceiling to be putting in that
Right.
2nd floor, but exactly.
Good evening, this is John. I have just 2 points of concern. We need to have a little dialogue with the planning board. We need to establish the maximum buildable envelope, Mr. Perna. And that envelope typically is designated clearly, you know, on the site plan, just outside the area that you wish to build on. And that, you know, should be noted in your legend, you know, the maximum buildable envelope. We still don't have that. I understand there was some miscommunication early on. You thought the maximum buildable envelope was actually the building area, but the buildable envelope is really just beyond the intended area where you wish to build the house. So that's something that needs to be put on the plans. And I don't know if the planning board members have any questions regarding that.
No, and it obviously includes it's the areas of disturbance. So it's the septic system and, you know, the final location of where the geothermal is going to go. I don't know, you know, where you are on the timing of, you know, doing that analytical work with the provider.
The other question I had, Mr. Perna, is I know utility systems are being made smaller and smaller, but absent any basement, where are the utilities going for the geothermal wells, the pumps, et cetera, et cetera?
The unit itself, the Hydron module that will be providing all the heating and air conditioning for the building, is about the size of a desk. It's maybe about 5 feet high. And that will be located in the utility room in the rear of the garage. And it'll be in a separate area from the garage. It'll be walled off, and there'll be a door into that utility area. And there'll be a door going outside of the garage. So it'll be housed in there, but it's a single unit. It'll create hot water, heat the swimming pool, create the air conditioning for the summer, create the heat for the radiant floor. And that's basically what it does.
Okay, along that line with utilities, I think we should note, are there any propane tanks or anything that are necessary?
No,
Okay,
there's not going to be anything burned in this house. No fossil fuels whatsoever. Everything is going to be solar power backed up with batteries, with no generator backing it up. Batteries will back it up. And there'll be no outside fire pits or anything like that whatsoever.
once again, along with the utilities, at some point you need to make a decision whether you're going to tap into the water main at the cul-de-sac or tap into the water main up at the end of Lookout Stable Road. That's up to you.
Well, at this point, I'm considering going up to the Lookout Mountain Road.
Correct.
Water tends to like to flow downhill, doesn't like to flow uphill. So taking it from the top, bringing it down to the house will ensure that there's proper water pressure. So that's basically the plan. And plus the distance will be closer to the house.
This is a Tuxedo Park. It will help ensure proper water pressure.
Okay.
That's all I have for now.
Okay.
Now, John,
Yes, sir.
could you explain about the building envelope? Because someone mentioned that it also includes the septic, the geothermal. So what exactly is what is that pertaining to? Kind of the perimeter of engulfing all the new items?
Correct. The planning board will determine, what the general building area is for all the infrastructure, including, of course, the house. Then the BAR has the parameter within that building envelope.
So when you
Basically,
say-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the parameter meaning the perimeter?
It-
Or is just saying the parameter meaning like the whole area?
It would be the area just outside what you plan on disturbing for the construction of not only the house, but anything related to the house. As the chairwoman said before, the septic system, any utilities,
The driveway?
the driveway.
I mean, basically, I would say your safest bet is to figure out your expected area of disturbance, including all of those things, footpaths.
And what are the parameters that you're looking for? Is there a calculation you're looking for, or it's just the information? For example, if it's 100% of the site, that's no good. So what are you guys looking for? Is it a maximum amount disturbed? Is there a
No,
parameter?
there's no mathematical number. It's just that the planning board can designate, the area based upon what you submit. And then the BAR has to work within that area. But there's no max or minimum calculation.
Oh, I
No,
understand.
it can't exceed all of the other zoning requirements, right? I mean, so in theory, your maximum buildable area could be the setback lines or the maximum area of coverage. But please don't show us that because we'll get cranky. What it has to do with the way the responsibilities are divided up between the various boards. So the planning board is responsible for siting. So we determine the maximum buildable envelope, which is going to be the limits of disturbance plus a little bit in case you need to decide to move something over a foot or something. Within that, the Board of Architectural Review has purview to adjust siting for aesthetic reasons. And I'm not being facetious when I say that, within that envelope. Did I get that right, John?
Yes, that's fine.
Very good. So,
And
I
if you want
mean-
to look at the code section, I believe it's 1713C, and that explains what the planning board considers in setting that envelope. So that might help you get an idea of what's being looked for there.
thank you. Ed.
Okay, just for clarifications, I think the septic area is a great example. If we zoom up to, well, I can't do it at the moment because I'm not sharing my screen, but the septic area, there's a couple of trees that are being removed. Everything else can stay. And although they have to create the trench lines, the trench areas to put the piping, the perforated piping for it to work and so forth. The goal is not, to have it, not to clear it, basically. So does that, is that defined as part of the disturbance area? Although it's not intended to be a landing field for a helicopter?
Yes, you should draw a box around where the septic field is going to go. And
So
that
that
would
has to
become
be-
part of the buildable area. You're not required to clear cut it and plow it or anything. It's just that's
Where we're working.
where you're working, correct?
Any type of excavation. So basically you're gonna use for the downhill side, use the outside of the silt fence as your limits because you shouldn't be excavating outside of your silt fence. And then any type of grading that you have. So any one of your proposed contours on the uphill north side, you want to have that envelope beyond that. So anything that you're moving soil, doesn't matter the magnitude, whether it's a helicopter landing pad or a fence post.
So, as I'm changing the contours, what are the parameters? I mean, how much from the excavation do you want? 5 feet beyond what's being altered throughout? Or is there a formula that you guys are looking for, 20? Because I don't remember seeing that in the code.
I think the parameter is, how close can you work, to that line? If you're going to be excavating, obviously the line can't be right next to the trench or right next to the pipe. There has to be just some reasonable area that allows you some margin. That's all.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I mean, obviously the line can't be right at the footing, line. You're going to be disturbing area a little bit outside of the footing area to create the footing and provide for drainage.
keep this in mind. This is the line. Once it's approved, we can go around with a can of yellow spray paint and draw the line. As long as you're inside of it, no one can complain that you're building where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I'm not suggesting we're going to do that, but this is the legal playing field for everything you're going to do.
It's interesting. Okay. I think I got it. I thank you.
I have a couple of questions if it's my turn.
Sure.
All right, I'll take that from. I want to go back to I want to go back to the driveway for a second. Because the documents that I have in front of me, including the stuff that arrived today, the amended stuff, on A002, which is the big table, still calls out a non-compliant driveway for slope. And this is one of the things that we brought up last meeting, and this was in Joe's report, and I thought I heard you say that you've brought it down to be within the 10% slope requirement. And if so, that's great. But I'd also like to point out that it's 10%, not 10 degrees of slope. They're significantly different numbers. And the only reason I bring this up, it's a magic number. If you get your driveway grades down to 10% or less, then we can happily approve it. If you don't, you're off to the BZA. And as far as I can tell, that's the only item on your list that's going to require a variance as of now.
I can happily say that it's 10%. And because of the 10%, the building is at a higher elevation. That was one of the comments for not having a consistent finished floor elevation, because I didn't change it across all our drawings at the time.
Okay. All right, good. So that's good. So it's resolved, and you'll clean up the drawings in the next issue. That's fine. You mentioned that there were a couple of trees that were going to be cut in the septic area. I understand that and I commend you that you're preserving as much of the existing trees and vegetation as possible, but at some point there needs to be a tree removal plan put together. And I can't remember if that's us or Bar who gets to finally approve it, but it's something we're going to need to see, unless I'm misremembering. John or Joanne, stop me if I'm saying something wrong. You're on mute and you nodded, Joan, so I don't know which way you're going with that.
Oh, it's the tree removal plan is part of the planting plan that the BAR would review.
Okay, so, but keep in mind, somebody's going to have to look at it. Okay, good. And the last thing, and this comes out of a comment that we got, and I don't know if you've seen it yet. Concerns have been raised about the accuracy of the survey. And yeah, that's the look that I had on my face when I heard this comment. And so my usual answer to that is, well, the survey was done by a licensed surveyor and it's correct. And the mark out was done by the surveyor. So it's not an issue. I'm an engineer. I'm assuming you got your survey done by a licensed surveyor and you got your mark out done by a surveyor and it's all good, but accidents happen. So just make sure your survey is good, please.
Kind of baffling because there are monuments in the ground.
I'm sorry, say again, sir.
I said that it's kind of baffling to me because there are monuments on the ground that have been put there permanently. And unless there was a major earthquake and you're not in an earthquake zone, I can't understand how anything could have been changed.
I agree
And so
with you.
I don't even understand how this pertains to this at all. And if there is a problem with the survey, is it a matter of boundaries and property lines? If so, bring it on. I want to see your survey. We'll compare it to my survey. All right? I mean, that's an absurd comment for somebody to throw out.
I appreciate that. I'm on your side on this one, but I want to let you know what it is. Okay, and the last thing I got, on sheet A03, you show a real French drain as a gutter leader alternate, which is to say a gutter leading to a hole filled with rocks.
Correct.
Are you planning that?
No, that's just an option if we have solid rock, we find solid rock and, I
Okay.
guess it's just easier. Either we will pick a different downspout location or as an option, this way we're not jackhammering and blasting rock for, just a small PVC pipe. So that might be used, but that's not going to be 100% used. It's just if we come to that situation, we could use that as an alternate design.
Got
And
it.
it's not
Okay.
intended to be used 100%.
Okay, good. No, I just want to, like I said, I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing here. All right, I've got nothing else.
So
do
can I
have-
ask,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
can you just summarize for us the cut and fill situation? Does it balance? I haven't seen the calculations on that.
Let me see if I could share my screen again. Let's see. This might take a little bit of time, but just bear with me. So the calculation shows a positive number. Let me just. I can't remember the number, but basically what it says is that if you're only looking at the cut and fill, just of the grading itself, then we're gonna need some dirt to fill in some areas at the bottom of the hill for the driveway. What that means to me is that that's not a big issue because it's not a large amount. We did not consider the footing requirements for the total building, which would probably, scratch that out. So I'm hoping that we're not going to need outside dirt to come in because the excavated area for the pool, all the footings, the garage would equate to what we need. So again, the cut and fill is only the grade minus the building. And then anything from the building itself, depending on how deep we go, what kind of material we will excavate for the footings, will determine whether or not we, could use that for the driveway, which is almost 90% sure that we can. There might be a issue of crushing rock to make it more usable instead of, getting boulders. We might have to crush it. But that's a discussion that we need to, talk about. But I'm not able to.
So, but this is a change because in last meeting, the first version of this we saw, you were definitely going to have fill to export as part of this project. And it sounds like now you're balanced, or you may actually need to import fill, depending on how much you dig out of the basement. Am I correct?
I mean, I throw in usually the cut and fill is just, the moving of the, landscape and so forth. But I could guesstimate what cubic feet, it would be for the building itself. Add that as a line that would probably negate it. Bringing us to a balanced situation. So if you wish, I could try to calculate what the building might, the excavation of the building itself might be, and put it on that chart as well.
Well, I think that's important. And again, if I'm about to say something wrong, Joanne, John, et cetera, correct me. But if you have, in a perfect world, your cut absolutely balances your fill, because that way you move the dirt around yourself. If you've got excess, that is to say you've got more fill than you need, you got to pay somebody to haul it away, because dirt's magic stuff. If you have too much, you got to pay to get rid of it. And if you don't have enough, you need to pay to get it brought to your site. But if you're importing fill, you now need a fill import permit, and that's town board. Village board, if I remember correctly, has to approve that. Which is not necessarily hard to do, but not something you want to do when you're looking at the hole and you need to fill it. So this is not a minor question.
This is not the first house that I built.
Understood.
And the last house, I had 310 loads of deleterious fill to remove. It cost me $100,000 to get rid of it.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons why I love the lot that I have. in Tuxedo Park. Because nobody's disturbed it, nobody's dumped 310 truckloads of dirt there, deleterious fill. When I had to bring in some material, or when I had to get rid of that material, rather, I had to get it all tested before anybody would take it.
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, we don't know what we're going to wind up with when we start this excavation. If you've ever broken rock, every time you break a rock, it gets 4 times the volume that it was when it was in one piece. So if we wind up having to break quite a bit of rock, we're going to wind up with a lot of broken rock, and that'll increase the volume. So it's really not going to be able, no one, I don't think, I mean, you could make some kind of ballpark calculation. No one's going to be able to tell exactly what we're going to wind up with, whether it's going to be positive or negative. But from my own experience of having to deal with breaking rock, that's exactly what happened. And I had a place to dump, and I couldn't dump it because when they were excavating there, they ran into a tremendous amount of rock, and suddenly I had no place to dump the trucks any longer. So.
Okay.
I mean, this is early in the phase. I have to talk to the geothermal person as well. There's a lot of rock there. The retainage area, for example, is perfect for, you know, the debris of rock that we have that could be crushed and used there. I don't know what the volume is. That's in the report. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I'm pretty sure once I talk to an engineer and the geothermal contractor, and then I could do the calculations for the house, we're gonna end up with an even swap. It's just the, you know, what we're gonna find is the only thing that we cannot answer today, and probably not until construction starts. And the answer that I'm referring to is it going to be boulders that we take out? Is it going to be broken up shale? I just worked on a site that had shale, and it was easy to break into usable construction material, which we used 100% of. And so it was a gift. So I'm hoping to get that same gift at this site as well.
Understood. Just, you know, this is, I'm really not trying to put up obstacles. I'm just trying to alert you to things that may, you know, the more things that we can get put into boxes at the beginning, the easier it is when we get to the end. That's all.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
Jamie, just a quick question on that sheet that you're showing there, because I don't believe I have that one. I just wanted to see if that was part of the more recent. I'm looking at one from 7/15 that has a different excess noted, so
Yes.
I don't know if I missed that one or.
Yeah, I don't have that one either.
What was the question? Did you want me to go over?
Did you submit the sheet that you have up right now to the
Yeah.
village?
Yes. Actually, we submitted it this morning because I noticed that one of the emails did not have that.
Okay, maybe I didn't see that one then. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't receive that sheet either. I asked that, I guess after this meeting, that the entire package be resubmitted, because I even noticed that the plan that we're looking at, the C0-01, there was at least one difference between the sheet that I have on my screen that I received this afternoon. So I want to make sure that we're all working the same set of drawings. To answer the Chairwoman's question, cut and fill calculations should include all of site disturbance. There are factors that can be used to calculate rock, but so whether it's excavation for the stormwater retention ponds, the driveway, the foundation footings, it's total site disturbance. It doesn't matter as to what the purpose is for. The village wants it so they can determine whether there's going to be imported fill, exported fill, or hopefully in this case, an even balance.
Okay.
And
I have that sheet up. I did have just one more comment. If you were talking about the bulk table earlier, I know Jay had pointed out the issue with the driveway grade. I think if you could just go over those requirements again, because I think some of the requirements are not showing what's actually required. It's showing what you're proposing. And I think in some instances, you might be referring to the wrong section. So if you could just make sure that what's shown in there is corresponding to the correct section, and maybe to coordinate with the building inspector on that to make sure they are accurate.
Is this for the driveway?
For a few things, I think the footprint, ground floor total, you're listing that as a percentage, but I believe that should be square footage. The driveway grade, what you're saying is required under the code section you cite isn't the actual requirement. Distance to the lake, the requirement is 100 feet minimum. You're saying the requirement's 6,200. The fence property line, minimum distance is 2 feet. Fence road, minimum distance is 5 feet. So just what you're listing in the table as a requirement isn't the correct dimension, I believe. So if you could just make a note to check those and make sure you coordinate with the building inspector to make sure you're referring to the correct dimension.
Maybe that information could be sent to me, because this is what I was using, which was originally sent to me in a package. So I don't know if it's obsolete. It might be in more updated information. I didn't make up this chart.
So the actual dimensions under the allowance, under that third column there,
Yes.
were those from the chart, or were those
That's-
something you put in there?
No, that's what I got from, I can't remember where, but I didn't make up the information.
But it even says that the driveway grade is 20% allowance, under 20%. And that's not correct, is it? Doesn't it have to be under 10%?
Correct.
Yep.
And then, like Jay had mentioned earlier, and then you have 11 degrees, which is,
Yeah, that's incorrect.
yeah,
Yeah, you become blind to these drawings when you look at it too much.
right. But the 20% is not correct for the allowance.
That's on your site or code. I mean,
I think the
you know,
section,
unless you give me the updated information, this is what they're stating, and it just makes me look better, because once I change the 11 degrees, it's going to say 10 degrees. So we're doing half of what's required. If it's not required, then
Okay, but wait a second,
I'm not sure where I got that, but
but be careful. Degrees of slope and percent of slope are not the same thing by a significant amount. So,
well, what I'm just saying is, I'm not sure. I did this a while ago, but the allowance under column is basically information I either found or was given already to us, and
okay,
the
so,
proposed condition is, so it makes me look better because I'm doing half of what's required. So if it is truly 10%, then that's fine. It's just, I'm not sure. I didn't make that up, in other words.
okay, so perhaps, I don't know, I'm not trying to assign homework, John, but maybe you, and I'll be happy to help you, we should edit up our half of this table to make sure that the right numbers are there.
Okay. I'm good with that.
you're absolutely right. And I think the section under slope 100-12 is that 75-20 rule. So somehow the 20% got in there, but it's not really correct. But I can go over that tomorrow and make some edits.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is, I think that, I think that somehow, somewhere this table, the requirement section has gotten a little corrupted. I'm not saying that I'm not saying this is an applicant's error necessarily. It's just, let's just get it corrected, and then it doesn't matter.
I believe I have this on Excel. If you want, I can send that to you. Unless you
Well,
guys,
I sent you the form in Excel so you could input the numbers. And I just think some of the numbers you wrote in under the allowance under you may have either oversimplified them or you have them in the wrong,
Okay,
Yeah,
wrong-
I mean, it doesn't really matter how it got
Yeah.
corrupted. Let's just clean it up and then we'll go there.
Mhm.
yeah, and if there's any additional items that have to be on there, by all means, let me know.
And I think, John, and this is a little out of purview of the board, but maybe what we should do with the driveway grade, since this isn't the first time this question has come up. It's 10%, which is equal to put number of degrees here, because I can't do that calculation in my head. And then it doesn't matter. We've got it both ways.
Yeah, I indicated 6 degrees. I hope that's correct.
Um,
So 10% or 6 degrees.
I don't know.
Actually,
We'll check and then we'll know.
Jamie, to be honest with you, with this many questions, we'd like to see the math behind it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anything really has changed on the site plan except the percentage. So we'd like to see how you got to the percentage of the driveway slope.
Sure.
That'll answer it. That's it.
And John, just one more question, I guess procedurally, as far as the Orange County planning, I believe it had to go to Orange County Planning Department. I don't know if there's been any comments from them.
It hasn't been sent to Orange County Planning,
Okay,
largely because we really don't have a site plan that we've kind of agreed upon at this point.
understood.
So I don't know if Portia or Jay, sorry, Mr. Whitty have any questions they want to ask, or whether we should turn it over to Joe. I mean, obviously Joe had a series of 23 questions, some of which have been addressed this evening. Joe, do you have other, follow-ups? Obviously you just got material today, so you haven't had a chance to review it yet. Anything you want to highlight? this
Yeah, I mean, there were some things that jumped out at me. I don't know if we want to go through bullet by bullet, or, I would
It's
just
probably
encourage.
the fastest, the most
Okay.
organized way to do it.
So the first comment,
Share that document of the bullets. Would that be possible?
I can share my screen if that's helpful.
Sounds good.
Okay. Right. Is everybody seeing the screen? This is the letter that I issued dated July 22nd.
Yes.
Yep, I see it.
All right, so first comment, retainage areas, little typo there, should provide grading and storage volume in cubic feet. Callouts for the elevations should be provided for the retainage areas. So it looks like the revised plans include some grading, and I'll have to review the stormwater report in detail just to make sure that the volumes are shown. Originally, it was just shown in planimetric square foot area, so we weren't able to determine the volume of the stormwater retention areas. Provided detail for the curtain, for the trenched curtain drain and pipe material and sizing for the pipe shown between the two drainage areas. It looks like that pipe diameter and material has been specified. We'd like to see what the pipe diameter and material is going to be for the trench drain that is shown behind the house and crossing the driveway. The proposed water service is shown crossing the proposed driveway trench drain and connecting directly to the existing fire hydrant. The water main should be relocated to not cross stormwater infrastructure. Looks like the trench drain has been moved. Also, the water service should connect to the existing main downstream of the isolation valve. Looks like that has not been addressed at this point. Connect the water service directly to the hydrant. There's a valve that's shown. So at the end of connected to each hydrant, typically there's a water shutoff. So if the village had to do maintenance to that hydrant, you're able to turn the water off and replace the hydrant. So you don't want to be connected between that valve and the hydrant, otherwise the house would be out of water. Provided detail for the proposed driveway trench drain. So there's a call out, it looks like, on the proposed plans for the specific make and model. Please clarify the intended discharge location of the proposed trench drain at the end of the driveway. That I didn't see on the updated plan. It looks like that swale on the uphill side, the northern side, is connected to it, but the trench drain would be lower gradient. So I believe that it would discharge to the southern part of the site. So we'd like to see where that water is going to be discharged to, because it's going to be collecting sheet flow from the driveway. Really, the primary intent of the stormwater system, as I spoke to the stormwater engineers, we want to demonstrate that the pre and post peak runoff flow rates are going to be the same or less than, so the post stormwater, the post construction stormwater discharge rates need to be the same or less than existing conditions. So when you add hardscape, when you add piping for water, that'll increase the velocity of the flow. So we want to see where this is being discharged and how that's being handled to slow it up. To the north of the septic leach field is a dashed line labeled swale. We need additional details or contour lines to show how that swale is intended to be graded into the site. It doesn't provide a width, a depth, or anything like that. And I'm not sure how the contractor would know how to build it, or how the village would be able to know that it was being constructed properly. Provide a proposed length of the sewer laterals for the septic system. So it says maximum 60 feet. But we'd like to know exactly what the design length should be, so that way the contractor can build it properly. Again, a lot of these, if they're asking for additional detail, it's not only for the contractor to build, but it's for the village to be able to confirm that this is being constructed according to plan. We discussed the pre and post stormwater construction runoff calculations. That was submitted today, so we'll have to review that in some more detail in the coming days. There are call outs to both a 3 and 4 bedroom residence for the septic leach field, confirm how many locations will be in the new family residence, and update the plans accordingly. So we want to see the exact number of laterals that are specific to this house being constructed. I understand that the site plan was developed decades ago, and it was sized to be able to handle multiple sizes of houses. We'd like to know exactly what's being proposed in this instance, so that way we can confirm it's being constructed properly. There was some conflicts with the finished grade elevations of the house between sheets, so we'd like to see that rectified. That's comment number 10. Comment number 11, required capacity of the concrete septic tank on the detail wasn't consistent with the updated volume that was shown in the updated site plan, so it sounds like that probably was addressed. Mr. Machado mentioned that there were multiple profiles for multiple lots on the detail sheet that have different floor elevations. It sounds like that's been rectified. So when we get the revised drawings, we'll make sure that that's been taken care of. Provide the supporting calculations for the septic system leach field design. So typical septic system submittals will require calculations that determine what the basal area is, what the required linear footage of the lateral should be, and that's based on the percolation rates that were used out in the field, and then the loading required for the house. So we'd just like to see those calculations to verify the system sizing is correct and appropriate. Typical lot layout erosion control notes call out hay bales. Hay bales are not standard per the DEC stormwater erosion blue book. So remove hay and put in straw. The difference is hay bales have seeds, straw does not. So that could cause planting in the area, vegetation in the area that's not wanted within the village. Typical lot layout shows us, again, this is now going to the detail sheet. So the septic tank sizing wasn't consistent. Also the pipe material leading from the house to the septic tank and then from the septic tank to the leach field. It was inconsistent. You're showing cast iron pipe. I'm assuming that if you want to use iron pipe, you probably want to use ductile iron pipe. But the detail shows PVC. PVC would be acceptable in this application as well. The units being used in the cut and fill analysis, that wasn't clear, and I'm seeing it says square cubic feet. I'm not familiar with that unit. So if you could just clarify, just so it's understood by all, whether it's cubic feet, cubic yards, makes a big difference. Minimum date requirements under village code, yard setbacks, greenhouse, it shows 108 feet for proposed condition for a greenhouse. We don't see a greenhouse on the plan. I think I noticed on your revision that you're referring to the enclosure for the pool as a greenhouse. We just like to get that clarified, unless there is intended to be a greenhouse on the site. We'd like to see a stabilized construction entrance, call out in detail to the site. So this is a typical erosion sediment control detail that's provided by the DEC. Basically, it's large aggregate stone. It's an anti-tracking pad essentially. So you're going to have equipment driving on and off the site, and we want to make sure that the soil doesn't get tracked down through the village roads. We'd like to see a detailed cross section for the proposed stone walls. So along the driveway, there's multiple walls that are being shown. One of them, I believe, is shown as being 15 feet tall. So we'd like to see how that's being proposed to be constructed. Location for the downspout collectors on sheet A003. This was mentioned earlier in the meeting. I'd like to see on this updated plan, the invert elevations for each of the downspouts and then the invert elevations at the connection point, because it looks like where a couple of the connections were shown in the back of the house that it was actually traveling uphill. So those would be rather deep. So we'd like to understand how those are connected, make sure they flow properly. And if you're showing these collectors, we'd like to know where they would be, or in what instances they would be used. So they've got a finite volume. So if you've got a larger storm event, typically they have overflows. So if you are going to substitute the piped roof leaders for these collectors, I'd still like to know, I think the village would still like to know where they're going to be, because on larger storm events, there will be a bypass and these will flood and then flow overland. We want to make sure that the stormwater system will be collecting it in the infiltration ponds as opposed to going downhill to another property. We'd like to see the location of the geothermal wells. We discussed that earlier. The primary reason that I would like to see that from an infrastructure standpoint is we want to make sure that there's proper separation distance. So you have to be certain distance away from stormwater infrastructure and primarily from sanitary wastewater infrastructure. Since it is a pressurized pipe, if it were to fail, you don't want to make sure that it doesn't get intermingled with wastewater effluent. Where you have it shown is clearly away from the septic field. We want to make sure that it's not going to be moved close to the septic field. We'd like to see a proposed cross-section of the driveway. So what I mean by this is a cross-section of what the driveway material is going to look like. Is there an underlayment fabric, and then is it 12 inches of stone, 6 inches of stone, what type of stone, to get an idea of what the construction is going to be for that material. And then we've talked about the code requirements. I think we've covered that point. So we'd like to just see that clarified, not only for the driveway, but now for the other items that were mentioned. So those were the comments that we had. I guess I'll hand it back over to see if there's any other questions or if you'd like me to elaborate on any of the points that I mentioned.
So at this point, does the applicant have questions about what just we all went through there? Do any of the planning board members or John have additional questions?
I don't.
I'm good.
I have one question on the greenhouse. Since greenhouse is literally a greenhouse, there's no dimension. I could put a 0 there or not answer that question, correct?
Correct. There's no green.
Okay.
If there's no greenhouse, just say no greenhouse.
No greenhouse.
There you go.
You go.
But I mean, put it on the table.
Sounds good.
I just have one question. This is John Ledwith. Ashley, should we wait until these questions are answered on a revised site plan before we send it to the county?
I don't think you need to if you want to get that process started. They do have the 30-day period, at least to review from whenever they receive it. If there are things you want to wait, you know, if they're going to be submitted sometime soon and you want to wait to have that, I think you should at least have a complete set, the most updated set with the correct revision date to send to the county, because I think there was some different drafts floating around, but.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the questions that we've raised about the site table, need correcting before that goes to the county.
And the revision date on the plan, so we're all on the same page.
So maybe you wait until there's a new submission. You could send it, once there's a submission that's sufficiently addressed those issues.
Yeah, I think it's best that way.
Okay, any other questions or actions? If not, depending on the
only
timing.
One question I did have was
Okay.
the email that we were to review today in regards to a neighbor concern. Is that addressed now, or is that just FYI information?
I apologize, I didn't see that one.
John, you had
Fine.
sent it out.
Yes, I received it around, I think around 5 PM today, so I sent it out to the board.
Oh, okay, it came in that late. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
no,
All right.
to be honest, I'm not sure there's anything that's really actionable there.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, but I thought I just still wanted to bring it up because I read it.
I
Yeah.
believe those comments have been shared with the applicant as well, correct?
Correct.
Great, perfect.
Okay, well, then we will be back together when the materials have been revised to move forward.
Thank you, everyone. That was a long meeting. We appreciate
Well,
all of
get
this.
all the,
There
Get
have
all the
been longer,
nitty-gritty
don't
covered.
worry.
so may I have a motion? Is there anything else that we need? We don't have minutes tonight. Anything else we need to do, John?
No, this is the only item on this evening's agenda.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. So the meeting is closed on the Perna application. Hope everyone stays well, and I'm happy New York State is letting us do this remotely. Makes so much sense. And we'll move forward on the application.
Thanks all.
One,
Take care. Good night.
Have a good night.
have a good night.